Bro, people who climb mountains for fun, are you okay? Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Nightmare Jazz, or just Jazz. You might know me from TikTok, but I don't want to be a TikToker anymore. I want to be a YouTuber. Well, this is my attempt anyway. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty of it. I'm new here, man. I'm working on the, what is that? Taglines. The taglines. Yeah. So 9 hikers went into the Ural Mountains in 1959, and only scraps of them came back. Okay, so their tent was found slashed open from the inside. And some of their bodies were barefoot in the snow, just scattered around. 2 of them had massive internal injuries and no external injuries. The Soviet investigation called it a compelling natural force. Cool story, bro. Like, what the does that mean? And to this day, we still don't really know what the hell happened up there. This is the Dyatlov Pass Incident, and it's one of the most chilling, weird cases, cold cases, in modern history. And trust me, the deeper you dig, the weirder it gets, okay? We've got avalanches, military experiments, sound frequencies that can mess with your brain, and yes, Yeti and aliens. So grab yourself a hot drink and a snack, or an ice drink if that's what you're into. I like both myself. And let's try to unravel what really happened out there. Okay, before we get into the really weird stuff, let's talk about who was hiking on this trip. The group was made up of 10 hikers, and we're not talking about like inexperienced people. These were hardcore, outdoorsy students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute in the Soviet Union. They were all super healthy, super fit, in their early 20s, except for one guy who was in his late 30s, but was like really into hiking. We're not gonna judge. Kind of judging, like, ugh. And leading the crew was Igor Dyatlov. Yes, Dyatlov. The guy that the pass was named after. He was super smart, really well liked, and overall just a natural leader. The whole group was full of high achievers. We're talking engineers, athletes. And these aren't the kind of people who panic easy or even would get lost in the woods. Like me. I could probably get lost in my backyard. And their ultimate goal was to climb a mountain called Orderden. Don't say it. Be nice. Well, that word that I can't say literally translates to don't go there. Really. Is this foreshadowing? And this trip was no joke. It was officially labeled a Category 3. This was one of the most difficult hiking expeditions you could possibly do. But again, these people were prepped, all right? They had gear, they had experience, they had even cameras and journals to document the entire experience. And the pictures from this are honestly heartbreaking. They're all laughing and smiling and super excited for the adventure that awaited them. They had absolutely no idea what was coming. One of the hikers, Yuri, actually ended up having to drop out of the expedition because of health issues, and he was the only one that survived. It's actually really sad because he would later say that he wished he hadn't. Damn, dude. So the group sets off on January 27th, 1959. Damn, bro, in the winter? And they plan to ski and hike and travel 200 miles through the Ural Mountains. And everything seemed normal at first. They were moving slow because of the weather, but they were making progress. And on February 1st, they had reached the slope of a mountain called Kholat Syat. I am so sorry. I will put it up on the screen because I am inferior But the local Mansi people called it Dead Mountain. Sounds promising. All right, now here's where things start to get really weird. Instead of continuing towards Orderden, they ended up camping right on the open slope of the mountain. Not in the forest, not down by the river where they would have had cover from like trees and things. Nah, right on the open mountainside, exposed during the middle of a snowstorm. So why the fuck would they do this is the question here, and the question that many have asked for decades. Some people think they didn't want to lose altitude, and some people have even theorized that maybe they just, wanted to test their survival skills. But either way, this would be the decision that unfortunately would seal their fate. All right, so the group was supposed to return by February 12th. And when no one heard from them, no one panicked at first because it's not unusual for a trip like this to run a bit longer. But by February 20th, their family and friends had had enough and rescue teams were searched out, which makes sense. And on February 26th, they found the tent. It was still standing, but it had been slashed open from the inside. Their boots, their gear, it was all there, but the hikers weren't. And what's even weirder was that there were footprints leading away from the tent, barefoot. And one person had just one shoe on in the tracks, like they can tell how people walked. So there were tracks where somebody was walking barefoot, and then there were tracks where someone was walking with just one shoe on. And these weren't scattered, panicked footprints, okay? Calm. This was just a person walking into the woods at sub-zero temperatures, leaving everything behind, walking into the dark. So searchers follow the footprints down the slope into the forest. And about a mile away from the tent, that's where they found the first two bodies. They're near a dead fire near a big cedar tree. They're both barefoot, wearing only underwear. No jackets, no gloves, just lying in the snow like they froze to death, trying to survive. Their names were Yuri Doroshenko and Georgy Krivonishenko. One had burns on his hands, and the other had bits of skin missing from his hands, like he was clawing at the tree trying to climb it. The branches on the tree above them were broken about 5 meters high. A little further up, they find 3 more bodies. Now, this would be Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin. Sorry again for my pronunciation. And with these guys, it was the same story. Lightly dressed, no shoes, signs of hypothermia, and it looked like they had been trying to crawl back towards the tent. And one of them did have a skull injury, which I guess you could chalk up to exposure, except you can't because it gets weird. But hold on for a second. We'll come back to that. So 2 months later, they find the rest of the hikers, and this is when shit hits the fan. Former bodies are discovered in a ravine nearby, partially covered up by the snow, all right, because it had been a couple of months. They were better dressed than the others, although it kind of seemed like they had taken the clothes off of the dead bodies to try to stay warm, and their injuries are fucking weird. So Dubonina, all right, her ribs were shattered, her eyes were missing, and her tongue had been ripped out. Zolotaryov, his ribs were also shattered, and his freaking insides looked like a bomb went off inside of him, but there were no external wounds. How? It was as if their bones had been broken and bodies had been damaged by pressure and not impact. Now, there were no signs of struggle, no defensive wounds, no other footprints, nada. Just confusion. Oh, and to top it off, their clothes tested positive for radiation. So to summarize here, 9 people go hiking, okay? They flee their tent in the middle of the night naked into a blizzard. Half of them freeze and the rest of them die from unexplainable injuries. And no one can say why. So what did the official investigation say? I mean, what can you say when nothing makes any sense? So you would think with all this weird shit, this would, spring a massive investigation to find out what the hell happened here, right? Right? Wrong. The Soviet government launches a quick investigation, and by quick, I mean quick. It seemed like they were just trying to wrap this up, kind of slap the file close. So the lead investigator, right, he takes a few weeks, looks over the evidence, talks to some witnesses, whatever. He rules out foul play because there was no sign that there was anybody else there at any point in time. I mean, there were no signs of a struggle. Not even animal prints. Nothing. Just the weird, calm footprints that were walking away from the tent. And when it did come time to release a, official statement, they said it was from a compelling natural force. What the fuck is a compelling natural force? So they closed the case. And then after the case was closed, they sealed off the Dyatlov Pass for years. Almost like the government didn't want this story even getting out or becoming a big deal. But what do you mean? Because of course it became a big deal. And then you start getting theories. Was it an avalanche? Maybe there was some kind of, nuclear testing or something like that affected people in the area or the hikers themselves. And then you get the conspiracy theories. Was it aliens? Yeti, weird sound waves from a military experiment. We have no idea. And this is one of those cases where it's can you really rule out the conspiracy theories? Because the evidence itself seems otherworldly. It doesn't make any sense. Or even science fiction in a way. Fiction? The biggest theory is that there was an avalanche. Basically, people think, and this is mostly skeptical people or people who, are trying to make sense of the situation with logic. People tend to try to apply logic to an illogical situation, right? And that theory is basically that there was a small avalanche. The group ran out of the tent. They freaked out. And even before that, maybe the whole reason they camped there was because of an avalanche. I'm rambling, but you know what I mean? There was an avalanche, everybody runs out of the tent, they're freaking out, they leave clothes behind, some of them freeze, some of them are injured. Bada bing, bada boom, right? Except there was no debris from an avalanche, so it definitely was not a freaking avalanche, because they would have been able to tell, if it had been an avalanche. And the fucking slope of the mountain wasn't steep enough. So, kind of physically impossible for there to have been an avalanche. Another logical theory is katabatic winds. So basically those are extreme gusts of cold, terrible air that have the force to do something terrible, completely shred apart a tent. But that doesn't explain the crazy internal injuries, but no external injuries at all. And I don't know how wind could rip somebody's tongue out and take their eyes. Don't know how that would happen. The other logical theory is infrasound. So what infrasound is basically a frequency that you can't hear, but your body can feel it. And it's been linked to feelings of paranoia, anxiety, and full-blown panic. Maybe something like that could have happened to create the panic for them to leave the tent in the way that they did, but it still does not explain those injuries. That doesn't make any sense. And then we get into conspiracy time. Because this is during the Cold War. So who knows what the hell was being tested on that mountain or whatever, what have you. And would the Soviet government ever come out and publicly talk about those things? No. The American government would never come out and talk about those kinds of things if that were to have happened here, And then there's the theory that it was a Yeti. I mean, if it was a Yeti or a Bigfoot or something like that, why are there no external injuries? What the heck? And then naturally, people wonder if it was aliens, because of course they do. I mean, at this point, maybe. So they did reopen this case back in 2019 to try to, reinvestigate it 60 years later. And you know what their conclusion was? Yeah, it was that it was an avalanche again, which still poses the same questions from before. Like, how does an avalanche rip somebody's fucking tongue out? I don't know. So yeah, I genuinely don't know. I think we don't have all the details from this. I think that the Soviet government will never release all the details from it. I think there are things redacted from this case that make us we're not really able to form an actual, hypothesis or theory about what actually happened, because I just don't think we have all the information. This doesn't make any sense. And in this case, like, I am a little bit more logical when it comes to these things. Like, I don't think it was aliens. I think it was something that was probably related to like a military testing situation, or even kind of like a Hills Have Eyes situation where like maybe they were doing some like nuclear testing or something like that, and like maybe they made some freaks or some shit like that. Like that's where my mind goes. But honestly, who fucking knows? I don't think we'll ever know. But it's really sad that those 9 people lost their lives, and lost their lives in the way that they did. Because bruh, just shoot my ass. All right. Just like, no. What do you guys think it is? Please comment down below and tell me what you think, because I'm so interested to hear your guys' theories. And also, let me know what cases you want me to cover next. Give me the ideas. I serve you. Tell me what you want me to talk about and I'll talk about it, okay? Thanks for hanging out. I get to say the thing. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Oh my God, I sound like Bailey Sarian. It's only because I watch her so much, but I gotta come up with my own thing, I can't steal Bailey's shit. Bye, guys.